Hello, this is Rich, and in this task, we're going to continue creating our custom C++ proximity mine. We're going to do this by learning what each of the iGame object extension functions do. Now, it's important to note that a lot of these can be plain old ignored, but it is a good idea to understand basically what they do. Some of them are pretty important. So let's go down the list. As you can see, I've organized the entire class by deleting all the comments and making them just virtual and not pure virtual by deleting the equals 0. So here we go. Get memory usage allows CryEngine to find out memory statistics about your class. What you would do is take this psizer object that is passed in when this function is called automatically and call its member function add and put in your class. Now CryEngine will know how much memory your class takes up for the profiler. On the init function, whenever you spawn an entity using the entity system or the roll-up bar in the editor, CryEngine will create a game object, assign that game object to the entity that it created, and then attach your game object's extension, which is our proximity mine, to the game object. But it doesn't automatically let the game object know that it's a child of game object extension. So, in this function, it gets called when you spawn your game object extension. And then you would use it to attach your game object extension to the game object that is passed in. Under post init is a place where your entity is fully initialized and you can actually do stuff with the entity. It's called right after the init function automatically. Init client is the same thing. It's an initialized function that's called after your entity is spawned, and it gives you a chance to do any initialization specific to the client. Post init client is the same thing as post init, but you're specific to the client. Reload extension, this gets called whenever the editor, for instance, reloads scripts, or when you're jumping in-game or leaving game into the editor. Pgame object is the game object that is getting reloaded, and the spawn params are the params that it was spawned with. Now, it does return true or false. If you return true, the game object will keep this game object extension. If you return false, CryEngine will drop your extension from the game object. Post-reload extension, basically, it just gets called after you reload your extension, in case you want to do anything there. Get entity pool signature can pretty much be ignored. It really has no use. I would return true to let it know that everything went okay. Release gets called automatically when you tell the entity system to remove your entity. Now, this game object extension will be deleted from the game object that it belongs to, and then the game object will be deleted from the entity it belongs to, calling the release function in the process. It is important to note that you should never use the delete keyword on your game object extension. Always grab the parent entity that is the owner of this game object extension and use the entity system to remove it. The release function will get called automatically, and that's the perfect place to deallocate your resources and do some cleanup. Full serialize is a place that you can serialize all your variables of your class. That way, it can be loaded or saved through save games, etc. It gets called automatically. Init serialize is the same exact thing. Now, the tserialized object is the object that CryEngine wants you to serialize with. You just basically take the SCR, the serializer, dot, add, and then you pass in a this pointer for your class. That's basically, well, automatically serialize your entity. Aspect, in case you're serving over the network, what it will do is you'll tell it what type of serialization that you want to serialize with. Are you serializing physics or the network? So it can do some performance enhancements. Post-serialize gets called after serialize here, and it allows you to just do any post fixes to your serialization logic. Serialize spawn info is not really needed, but under special circumstances, you may want to serialize how your entity was spawned. Get spawn info, again, is a special case scenario that will most likely never be used. Update gets called every frame if your game object extension allows updating every frame. Handle event, that gets called automatically by the system whenever the game framework triggers a game object event. and then your GameObject extension will receive this event here, and the event that happened will be contained in the event variable. Process event is pretty much the same as handle event, although it's when the entity system sends an event, either to this entity or to all entities in the system. This function will be called automatically, and the event will be the event that happened, along with any arguments that were passed for the event. Networking functionality, post update, gets called only if your GameObject extension has enabled post updates, and it gets called right after update, in case you want 2 updates per frame. And post remote spawn gets called after you spawn. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned a little bit about what each function does in iGameObject extension.